We'll talk about the research process itself. Throughout the morning, we'll talk about outside options, interlibrary loan, getting articles from other libraries, ATLA libraries, that is other libraries that we are associated with that you can borrow books from, Google Scholar, how to use that, how to connect that with what we have, other libraries, about visiting other public libraries or other academic libraries, and then again, the live Q&A at the end. Digital reference, things like Credo Digital Reference, which I've just pulled up on the screen, things like Oxford Biblical Studies Online, and some of the other things that are available to us are basically dictionaries, encyclopedias, that sort of thing. Many of them are subject specific, like Erdman's Dictionary for Early Judaism. These are things that you can use for academic purposes. They are usable, unlike Wikipedia, which, although a lot of people accept it, it's not typically used within academics. If you've got a question that you would use for Wikipedia, Credo References is a much better source. You have access to this through the library webpage, and in fact, let me go ahead and show you that. Here on the library webpage, lifepacific.libguides.com, and we'll get to that in a bit. Under Resources, when you click on the Resource tab, there is a way to get to the Credo reference on the right-hand side. So let me go back and talk about Credo reference. This has, like I said, it's roughly 700 different dictionaries, encyclopedia. It's a wonderful digital resource. It's available 24/7. So unlike the library, which closes, you have access to this at any time and anywhere that there is internet access. Also for digital reference, we have things like ebooks. Our ebooks are hosted by a company called EBSCO. We'll talk about those things much later, and we'll cover how to access those and how to use them. We also have articles. We subscribe to several databases. In those several databases, we have hundreds or thousands of journals, and within those, tens of thousands of articles. So you have access to quite a bit through Life Pacific. One of those databases is ERIC. ERIC is Institute of Educational Sciences, something like that. I forget the exact name here. But it's a database for education and psychology. There are some books dealing with the same topics as well. So at first you may not think about using ERIC because most of your papers are not psychological or educational in scope. But when you start talking about psychology, it also has things like testing and other things that might be related to church ministry and counseling as well. Now when I use the word database, for a librarian that typically means a collection of subscriptions to journals in the same field. So for us, an education database would have journals that we subscribe to that are all dealing with education, biblical studies, and things like that. A database host, such as EBSCO or some of the others, ProQuest, those are a company that hosts several databases all at once. ProQuest, I was mentioning database hosts. ProQuest is a database host. It has about 7 different databases. They range in topics from arts, business, science, psychology. By default, it will search all of its databases at the same time. So it's very convenient that you can search, one search and you're searching literally thousands of journals. EBSCO also hosts about 7 databases as well, and this is a collection of articles that you can use, and again, thousands of them. One of the main ones that you'll be using for many of your courses is the Atlas, which is a database for biblical studies, ministry, and theology, and so that's often used for the theological aspect of many of your papers. Lastly, I come to this. This is the URL for our LibGuides. And LibGuides are basically websites created by us, the librarians here at Life Pacific, and they're meant to help the students understand research. In some cases, we have things for courses, we have some for subjects, we have some for general purpose. So let me go ahead and show you a couple of these. Well, here from the main page, let me scroll down here to where I see click to all our LibGuides. And you'll notice that here, down here on the side here, it has course guides, general purpose, and subject guides. When I click on course guides, this opens up courses that we have created LibGuides for. And you'll notice that we have a number of these for MASL courses. About half of the courses in the MASL program have a LibGuide. And what those LibGuides are there, our attempt to give direction from the library about research for the projects and papers in those courses. Some of them are more developed than others. We also have subject guides. These are general topics. We do have a biblical studies guide that's fairly well developed, ethics, church history, and so forth. So all of these things are available to you for you to use if you need them, if you want to add to your research and that sort of thing. And lastly, we have general purpose. General purpose guides are intended for you to use. There are things like search techniques, citation, and research. So within this, these are generally about how-to guides. It's kind of things for you to help you understand how to do things. One of these here is the MASL guide to the LPC library. Click on this. This opens up a LibGuide created specifically for you. And we have a home page here, which talks about things like a video on how to log into the catalog. We'll talk about that in a little bit. About this guide. This is last year's research webinar, or last July's research webinar, and it has a peer review process PDF, and it also has a research process flow map. And in fact, that flow map is kind of what I'm going to be following as I work my way through this webinar. And then if you look down here at the bottom, it's basically a recording of the last webinar of the same topic here. So 58 minutes long for last time. And we've got more things here. So as we go through this, we'll notice that we've got how to contact the library email, it's got phone numbers, it's got my email address, it's got Gary's email address. We even do Skype, so if you're available, I'm available 8:30 to 12:30, and that's typically when that Skype is available. We'll talk about the library orientation for the new students. This is where you would find the actual orientation from the library. We have borrowing policies so that you can understand what you can check out and how to use those things, including interlibrary loan of books and borrowings from other local colleges. This is one that we'll talk about a little bit later. This is borrowing from ATLA. These are ATLA libraries that you can borrow from. So this is a wonderful LibGuide for you guys to bookmark, be aware of. It's the MASL guide to the LPC library. This is where the recording of this orientation, this research webinar will go. When I think of research, I tend to think of it as 3 steps. Our first step is going to be an introduction, using general reference materials, using materials that are going to help me learn a little bit about the idea. It's to get me started, getting my feet wet. The second step is going deeper, and here I'm going to tend to use monographs, so books about a single subject. And the last thing I want to do is I want to be complete and current, and this is where we're going to use journal articles. So as you begin your research, this is how I typically think of things, and what we're going to be doing in the next 45 minutes, 50 minutes, is going through these 3 steps. Introduction, general reference materials. So here's where I'm using general dictionaries, encyclopedias, books with entries describing topics and ideas. We find subject-specific dictionaries and encyclopedias. If you were to look in the library catalog by entering encyclopedia and your topic, you would typically find something. Credo Digital Reference has both general and subject-specific encyclopedias, and so it's a great place to do some work and to get things started. Within Credo, not only do you have subject-specific, we also have things like the IVP Bible dictionaries. They're online and available through Credo. We have almost all of them. We're missing 2 from the set because they haven't been produced in a version that we can use with Credo. One of the great things about using Credo or some of these dictionaries, you can search within them, or you can just use the online table of contents and work your way through them. So the process in this step, how is it you go about using these general reference materials? Well, you go to our library website, and that will take you to our book catalog. In the book catalog, you either enter encyclopedia or dictionary, and you enter the topic as your keywords. You choose the title that you want, and if the title is an ebook, you may have access to it. If it's not, you probably don't. When you look at the ebooks, when you find one online, you'll be presented with this option of finding the book online. This particular says it's at Life Pacific, and you would click on this View ebook. This actually is within Credo itself. So that's one way to find an ebook. We also have ebooks, and this happens to be in the EBSCO ebook subscription. We'll talk about how to get to those in just a little bit. And then there are others that are available to us, and they appear in our book catalog. This particular book, what is this? Frankenstein, I found as an ebook within EBSCO. It's on the Internet Archive, and it's also in Project Gutenberg. So there are several ways to access that particular book, all from our catalog. So here I am on our library webpage. I'm going to click on Resources, and this takes me to our resource page. And this lists all of the databases that we subscribe to, including digital reference materials. I scroll down, and here is Credo reference. So I'm going to click on Credo reference, and it pops up. And it basically tells me that there's over 3 million entries in 789 reference books. So this is a small library for you to use. And in this case, although I know it's not one of your topics, I'm going to start typing for Puritanism, or Puritan. And as you notice, I start typing, it starts trying to fill in with suggestions. I'm going to go ahead and click on this first one as Puritan, and go ahead and allow it to search. And this will should give me several options of entries in the various dictionaries, different encyclopedias and dictionaries, publications that will have an article on Puritanism. Or here's what's called a topic page, which is a great place to start because it will give me links to other things about the same topic. So here I am, and I have a basic article being presented here. It happens to be the article from the Hutchinson Unabridged Encyclopedia. And I have over here related topics. And I have images. And then it also have other entries and other articles to look for. And at this point in the process, I really don't want to go to articles. I'm trying to find basic information. And this is the kind of information I want to find in an encyclopedia. So this entire article, if I were to click on it, it expands. And just glancing at some of these things, I might read things like the Marprelate controversy, the Elizabethan religious settlement. I might see things like congregationalism. And so those give me key words, words that are related to my topic, and those things might be ideas that I want to pursue further. At this point in the research process of using the encyclopedias, I might find more narrow fields, or I might find a tangential field that I might want to change my topic to. So that's not uncommon at this point to do that sort of thing. But these are the kinds of words, these key words that I'm reading within this article. Those are the kind of technical terms, key terms that I'm going to want to use as I begin to do my deeper research in the catalog and do deeper research in the encyclopedias, or I'm sorry, in the articles and that sort of thing. So having looked at this, I might have some good ideas about what I want to use. I might take congregationalism as a key word for something to look up. And one of the great things about using Credo and about using all of our digital things, our digital articles, our digital books, and so forth, is that they almost all have references. Down here at the bottom of this Credo thing, it has APA, Chicago, and MLA. And what that is doing is that is creating a citation that you would put in your reference page. This is actually a pretty good time saver, because all you really need to do then is copy this and paste that into your reference page. Now, it's not going to be 100% correct all the time. Most of these things work really well, except for when there's multiple authors and editors, because then it tends to mix up the names as to who's who. So you always need to check with a style guide, the correct style guide. But in this case, this is fairly easy. Puritan, that would be the entry, the date, and then it tells you the exact thing that you need to do for the rest of the citation. That would be a great APA citation for this article. Now, as you're working on your MASL, as far as I know, APA is the style that you'll be using for your entire degree program. So go ahead and get used to the APA citation, and you'll be using that quite a bit through your research. So as I was saying, as we're doing general reference, we're trying to find topics, we're trying to find names, we're trying to find dates, we're trying to find general information to help us in the next step. And now we're going to talk about going deeper. We're going to talk about monographs, which basically means singular book. What we're wanting to learn here is to find and use a subject heading. Now, subject heading is a technical term used by librarians for the idea of topics. It's the tags that librarians assign to a particular book. Books and articles are now often assigned subject headings. So our search strategy at this point is to use some of those keywords we found in the general references, those keywords, those key phrases, to find one book. Once we have found one book that's on our topic, we want to learn the subject heading that's used. Now when we search using the subject heading and a keyword, we're going to do that to focus on what we really want. After we've done a little bit of, after you begin to understand that, we then move on to possibly finding subject headings After we've done that, we'll try to find subject headings from the Library of Congress if we need to, because they're the ones who actually write most of the subject headings. So what we need then is our catalog. All right, so here I am in the advanced search page. Now this is a wonderful place to start to help you understand what to do. Here I have 3 boxes. You probably recognize them as boxes you would use to search even within Google. Keyword search, title search, author search. So if I actually knew the title, I could just enter the title there, or if I knew the author, or even parts of the title and parts within the catalog. And I'm trying to go into a deeper research. So I'm going to use something like keywords that I had learned so that I can search for one particular book. Now, I know you're not searching or we're doing any research on the Puritans. That was just to try and get you to understand a little bit with that first example. So let's pretend you have the topic of something like pastoral ministry in a racially diverse congregation. For MASL students, that's fairly common, something along those lines. So as you begin to do something pastoral ministry, racially diverse congregations, multiculturalism might come up as one of the technical terms for racial diversity. So let's use that as one of our key terms. So I'm going to go up here into keyword search, and I'm going to type in multiculturalism, make that a little bit bigger. Hopefully that helps. So I've got multiculturalism and pastoral ministry. So those are my 2 terms, and I'm going to go ahead and hit search. This is going to present us what's known as a results list. This is a list of all of our results arranged first by those that are at Life Pacific and then those that are not. So with our keywords of multiculturalism and pastoral ministry, we found 96 books or items that are available. Over here on the left-hand side, we'll see that this is all formats. We have 55 books, 35 articles, 3 videos, and we've got other things. But for what we're trying to do at this point of research, I'm trying to find one book that's about my subject, find the subject heading, and then I'll use that. So I'm going to limit this just to books. Now, at this point, it's also a good idea to mention this. You don't want to repeat searches, so it's always a good idea to keep a research log. Go ahead and write down everything that you researched, that this was multiculturalism, pastoral ministry, so that you don't end up committing the same search 3 and 4 times. You really do want to keep it simple and do it just once. So now as I'm looking at this, I'm looking at In Living Color, an intercultural approach to pastoral care and counseling, ministry in the margins, youth and poor, multicultural ministry handbook, connecting. That sounds interesting. That sounds like something that might be related to our topic. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and that takes me to what's called a materials page. Now, in this materials page, I have the title of the book, and I have everything that I would need for a citation right here. Now, that'd be great, or I could use citation, which is right above it. And one of the great things about this materials page is not only does it tell me where it's available, it's in our library, it's available, and there's its call number. And so if you happen to be on campus, you could do that. This often gives me down here under details things like the table of contents. So now I have a table of contents, and I can look at this and see if this really is a book that sounds like what I'm interested in. So building blocks of a multicultural ministry, multicultural church, white pastor, these are topics that I'm very interested in. So then as I'm looking at this, I'm looking at these subject headings up here in the top left, or I'm sorry, top right. So here I see subjects, and these are what librarians have said this book is about. So this book is about church work with minorities in the United States, race relations, religious aspects within Christianity, and multiculturalism, religious aspects in Christianity. So that sounds great. These are good subject headings, and right now I would be writing these things down and trying to figure out which one is most appropriate. Now, as multiculturalism was one of the key words I saw, and here it is in my title, I'm going to click on this, and when I click on this subject, it's going to give me all of the materials that are related with this exact same subject heading. So let me emphasize this. This is probably your best way to do research. It's to find the subject heading that's appropriate for your topic. let's see if this really is. Okay, again, I have 786. I'm going to limit it to just books. And let's see what I've got here. Christianity, ethnicity in Canada, an intercultural approach to pastoral care, the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, a spiritual for leadership in multicultural community, crossing the ethnic divide, multi-ethnic church. So I've got several books that sound very appropriate. And this would be this looks like it would be a good list. So this particular subject headings of religious aspects, Christianity with multiculturalism, tends to be fairly good. This Christianity ethnicity, though, doesn't exactly look like what I'm wanting. This tends to be dealing more with the idea of ethnicity than necessarily within church ministry. So I can be really, how do I say this? I can be picky as I go through my 682 books, or I can actually figure out if there is an even better subject heading. Intercultural approach, pastoral care, pastoral counseling. This sounds good, but as I look at things like my table of contents, history, theory, practice, introduction, so some of these appear appropriate. Others, I'd have to go book by book to figure out if they're actually a good book. So what I want to do then, if I haven't found a good enough subject heading, is I actually want to find the perfect subject heading. So I'm going to go to a different website. I'm going to go to the Library of Congress. And this is at catalog.loc.gov. And this is the catalog for the Library of Congress, which is a government website. It's not exactly the most exciting website in the world, and it actually has a timer which will time out if you stay too long on one particular page. But our goal here, and as I go to the subject headings for the catalog at the Library of Congress, is I'm trying to find the perfect subject heading. Multiculturalism worked out okay, but it also included some things that were not exactly what I'm looking for. And for whatever reason, my computer is being picky. Well, this is going to take too long, I think. But let me go ahead and come back here to online search techniques. Under this LibGuide, online search techniques, how to find subject headings, and this actually gives you all the instructions on how to find the subject headings here from the Library of Congress. And so, although I couldn't get there now, basically it's a matter of following a couple of instructions here, and it'll tell you about subjects containing, and you'll actually find subject headings. And you can take those subject headings from the Library of Congress website and use them in our catalog. And when you do that, you'll find the most precise way of searching. One of the great things is that many of our databases use those same subject headings. So that subject heading you used for your book, you can also use that within the subject and within the databases to find articles with that same exact subject. All right, so one of the great things here, back to the catalog, back to one of the books that was in our search results. You'll notice as you look at this material, at this results list, that most of these are listed as Life Pacific College, Life Pacific College. And that basically means we have these or have access to them, especially if they're an ebook. In this particular case, this number 3 here is at Life Pacific, but really it's an ebook. And so we'll talk about how to access those things a little bit later. I want to get to something that's not here. Let's try page 3. Alrighty, so here I'm coming up to books that we don't have. So let's say if I clicked on this multicultural religious education, and if I was interested in this book because it might have been exactly what I wanted, and you'll notice that it doesn't say at Life Pacific and it doesn't have our call number, but what it does say is WorldCat. Find it in libraries globally. So what I want to do is I want to click on this worldwide libraries that own this. Now, here's my zip code, or here we are at the zip code for San Dimas, and it lists libraries and the distance from that location. So although our school here at Life Pacific, we don't have this book, but it is available at several other libraries in the area. Now, if you were to put in your zip code, you would find libraries that are close to you. We don't have borrowing agreements with all of these libraries. You can't necessarily go into these libraries and check out the book. But most academic libraries are totally fine if you walk in and use the book in their library, within their building. So here you can now find that this book is available at several libraries close to the Denver area, and you could, that it actually is in the Denver area, and you could go and go into one of these libraries and use this book on their shelf. The great thing about this catalog, if I were to click on Regis University, it would actually take me to their catalog, and it would give me the call number on their shelves. So you could actually go to that library with that information in your hand and find it on their shelf. That's a wonderful opportunity for students who are not close to here, to us here. You can actually go and use these other libraries. Now, even better, or one of the best things about this, let me see if I can get back to the MASL guide. Here's the MASL guide. Mentioning that, I'm going to click on this borrowing. We do have agreements with several libraries, and this is known as the ATLA Reciprocal Borrowing Program. What it is that the American Theological Library Association, which is a group of libraries that will allow distant students to use other groups' libraries. And this little flyer basically explains it. So you find a library, a participating library with that little URL, and it has a map, and I believe it's it's more than 60 schools at this point. You show proof that you are currently enrolled at Life Pacific to the participating library, and then you actually can check out books according to their policies. So you're adhering to their library policies, but you can borrow it even though you're not a student there. So it's a great opportunity for to use other academic libraries. Like I said, go to that map, see if there's a school, a seminary, a graduate institution that's near you, and you can actually check out books from those schools. The one thing you need to do, though, is contact us first, because we're going to actually need to verify that you're a student in good standing, and then you can borrow from these other schools. So the first thing, contact us, then contact them, let them know that you'd like to come, you're a part of the ATLA program, and then you'll have to show them your library card or your student ID card, and then things should work out for you. That is a wonderful program that just started in the last year or so, and it's a great. So we mostly covered books, how to find them. Most important thing is to use the keywords that you found in the general reference material. Use those keywords to find one particular book that is exactly about your subject. Use the subject heading, and then use the keyword, and then you find great books that are about your topic. Next, we move on to this concept of being complete and current. The purpose of this particular step is to gain current knowledge, as current as it can get as far as being published. Also to gain historical knowledge if you're going to search for a specific time period, and to gain broader perspectives. Materials that typically are used in this step is scholarly journals, not magazines. You can also use reports or conference proceedings and that sort of thing. So one of the important things to do as a student here at Life Pacific is to create profiles, so that when you go to something like EBSCO, but once you go to EBSCO and you start looking for journals and that sort of thing, if you create a profile and you sign into it, it will allow you to save your searches into a folder. Not only saving searches, but you can actually save the articles, save the subjects that you searched, so that you can come back to those at a later time. It might be that, as you're looking at your watch, you have 5 minutes left in your research before you have to go somewhere, and you can just save it to your folder and come back to that same list later. So this is a wonderful thing, and I'd recommend this to every student. Create profiles within WorldCat, which is our book catalog, this catalog, not only the library account, but the WorldCat, but also within ProQuest, where you have the same concept here in the folder, and whatever it's doing, and then here at EBSCO. So this is a great thing, and everybody should do those. Going back to our library webpage, which if you haven't bookmarked our library webpage, you ought to. It's easy enough to get to if you're at Life Pacific College. So here's the lifepacific.edu. Under Student, fifth one down is Library. You click on that, and that will take you to the library page. I'm wanting to find journals. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Resources. So here I have all of these resources listed. I have all of the databases that we subscribe to. We also have here digital reference materials. This is where we found Credo. We also have other things, Oxford Art Online, Oxford Biblical Studies, and so forth. But one of the things that I'm going to point out here is in this upper right-hand corner, pick the best resources link. And what this does, this takes me to a list of our databases. And over here on the left-hand side, all of the subjects that we have created, art, mostly visual arts, biblical studies, ministry, business, general studies, which is a mix of everything, and then psychology and social work. So what this is going to do is it's going to eliminate the databases that I'm not interested in. So if I click biblical studies, it says we have 6 databases that are linked to biblical studies. Atlas Religion Database with Atlas Serials, Oxford Biblical Studies, Consortium of Pentecostal Archives, Credo Reference, although it's not specifically about religion, there is religion stuff in there, our academic ebooks, and research library. But you'll notice 2 of these are tagged as best bets. Those are going to be your best bets for dealing with biblical studies. They are specifically about biblical studies, and they're not too narrow, like the Consortium of Pentecostal Archives, nor are they too broad, like the Credo Reference. So here I'm going to choose the Atlas Religion Database with Atlas. This is the best, currently the best database for biblical studies. Now, as a distance student, you'll have to log in using your student ID and password, and then you'll have access to this. Now, it tells me that it's searching the Atlas Religion Database with Atlas, or I can choose databases. Now, in this particular case, I really don't need the audiobooks, so I'm going to eliminate some of these other things, so I'm just searching articles. Save my selection by clicking OK. At this point in the process, I'm just looking for articles. I want to be complete and I want to be current. So I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to search for not multiculturalism, but cultural pluralism. And you might be wondering, why am I choosing that? The reason I'm choosing that is when I was trying to go to the Library of Congress, this is what would actually have told me, is that cultural pluralism is the one that deals with racial diversity. This is actually the more appropriate subject heading. You'll notice that it also tried to fill it in for me as I started typing that in. That's great. What that does, that tells me that is the subject. Now here I can search for text, abstract, author. Down here towards the bottom is subjects. So I'm going to use the subject cultural pluralism. And I'm also going to use the subject pastoral care. Okay. And again, notice that it started filling that in for me, telling me that that's a subject that's used by the Atlas database. That's a great thing to do. But before I hit search, I want to point out some of the things that are available here to narrow my search even before I really get started. I come down to limit your results. This little one right here, scholarly peer-reviewed journals, this is very important for academic purposes. As a student, you need to understand what peer review process is so that you kind of understand why your instructors want it. The peer review process basically is this. An author writes an article and wants it to be published. So they send it to a journal. The journal receives it, the editor receives it and accepts the article, and then passes it on to experts. Often it's 2, sometimes it's 3 experts in the field of the article. They will then read the article and determine whether or not it is academically acceptable, whether it's a high quality, whether it's current research, whether it's just repeating what somebody else has already said. And based on their opinion, whether it's worth publishing or throw it out, or it's worth publishing if they change a few things. They then send that back to the editor then sends it back to the author. And this back and forth may happen 3 times. More often it's once or twice kind of thing. Eventually, if it's deemed good enough, it gets published. And what that does is that peer review process then elevates what is published. So what you're seeing is the highest quality material, the most current material, and that which has been deemed by other experts as being good stuff. So this is why your instructors always want you to use peer-reviewed articles, not just some magazine where anybody can write and gets paid to do that sort of thing. This basically says it's gone through a process and is worthwhile. You can also change the years that you're looking for. So if you're wanting current publications, and this is important as well, depending on your subject, your instructor will give you details as to how old an article can be. I have a friend who teaches cancer biology at another institution, and they don't bother reading articles that are older than 5 years old. Now, that happens to be a science issue and things like that. So within 5 years, they'll read it. Otherwise, it's considered too old. For us, depending on your paper, pay attention to your instructions, probably going to be 7 to 10 years. In some cases, they might say 5 years. And what that does is that really limits it down to what is the most current information in your field. Again, depending on the field, might depend on how long it can be, and it can be just fine. You can also establish a date range. So if you wanted to know what was the state of your topic, say 30 years ago, in this, you can say 1980 to 1990 kind of thing, and you can establish a date range. And so you can do historical research using these date privileges as well. So that can be a good bonus for you. You can also find different kind of things. If you get too many things listed, you might actually limit by language. Most of our databases are English. I don't want to say English only. That's their most common journals that are being published in English. But there are journals that accept articles published in other languages. So you might have a journal that is 3/4 in English, and then you might have a Spanish journal, Spanish article, a German article, and a French article, and that's a possibility. So you can limit by language if you really want to. All right, so the only thing I have clicked here is scholarly peer-reviewed. Those are my subjects, and I think I'm ready to hit search. All right, so this gave me 12 options, and if you're doing research and you get as little as 12, you're in good shape, because that means 2 of those might be useful. You'll notice that here we have an article. This gives me the title, and if I click on that, that'll take me to the materials page. This says it's available as a PDF. That's great. It tells me I know how to access it and do have access to it. You'll notice that this number 3, there is nothing listed here. And so what I have here is not an article, but I more than likely have an abstract. And what that tells me is that all this is a review of the article. It's not the actual article itself. And so you'll see that in a few of these. Some of them may actually be links to the publisher's site, and then you have access to the article. And in other cases, it's just going to be abstracts. One thing if you are desperately short on time, and this is not something I normally recommend, but you can limit to full text. And that takes me from 12 to 10. It eliminated those that didn't have a full text available. Now, the reason I don't like to mention full text is when you limit by full text, you eliminate good material that we may actually have had access to. Because not only do we have access to these articles here, let's go ahead and go back to that list. Let's say number 3, this early whatever, if this really was the article you wanted and we don't have it as a PDF, let me click on this. I want to mention something very important to you. Just because we don't have it and we don't have a link here to PDF, we can still get this article for you. What you need to do is you come over here, you click on Cite. I mentioned this before. This is a great way to see the citation. Pick your style, APA. You can copy and send that to library@lifepacific.edu and say that you want this article for your work, and we will do what's called interlibrary loan. We will attempt to get that article from other schools, and more than likely we will get a PDF version of that sent to us from another institution, and we can just email that to you. So this is a great way that you can continue your research. Now, that will take a few extra days, And so it is that as a librarian, I will make this kind of thing. Start your research early. Don't wait till the last minute. So if you find something that you want, ask for it. If it's an article, we can get it for you, or we should be able to get it for you, if it's not as a PDF. And now I'm going to mention the last thing. Now, all of this process here, subject and keywords and that sort of thing, that works not only within EBSCO. Oh, did I close ProQuest? That also works the same here in ProQuest. If I click Advanced Search, this is just another database host. You can get to it through our website. You can do those same searches. You can do the same peer review. You can do the same peer text, full text. You can change the dates and that sort of thing. In other words, most database and database hosts are set up the same way that you can do those same type of research. Just depends on the database that you're interested in. Now I'm going to do something that I know for those of you who are in Clayton Robinson's class, you have to do a lit review. And in that lit review, you have to do some Google Scholar material. So let me show you how to connect Google Scholar to Life Pacific. So you type in scholar.google.com, and this brings up. So Google Scholar can be a great resource. It will let you know that there is a ton of material out there. The caveat with it is that it is not as precise as using one of the databases that we have. And the reason I say that is that Google Scholar only searches by keywords or by author or title. If you don't know the author or title, all you're doing is searching by keywords. You cannot search by subject heading, and subject heading, as I've said, is the most precise way of finding things. Well, if I can mentally walk you through it, the idea is that you go to scholar.google.com, and in the upper right-hand corner, there's the little widget, the settings issue. So you click on settings, and then there's a thing on the left-hand side that says library links, and you want to click on library links. And then you can search for different libraries that you have an association with. So if you search for Life Pacific College, it will bring up several little links, and some of those are old dead links. And what you want is one of those will say get from LPC. Now, get from LPC is the most recent link to our catalogs. What that means is that if you go to Google Scholar, you've saved that as one of your libraries, then when you do a research within Google Scholar, on the right-hand side next to an article, if we have it at Life Pacific, it'll have the little get from LPC. If we don't have it, it will have the other libraries or other websites that do have that. So that's a wonderful little advantage that you can connect Google Scholar to Life Pacific. Again, another little issue that I have with Google Scholar is that in some cases, they will ask you to pay for articles. That's a horrible thing. You're a student who's paying money for your education. Those articles, if it's really one you want, again, take the citation down, send it to us as an email, and we can try to find it from another school, in which case it's free, and as opposed to some of the Google Scholar articles asking $20, $30, or $50 for the article. So start early. If you use Google Scholar, try to make sure that it's linked to us, and you'll have access to those things. All right. So we fumbled through some things because connectivity. And lastly, I come to this. If you've got questions, here's some contact information. My name again is Steve Young, and there is my email address, syoung@lifepacific.edu. Or you can contact Gary. He's the head librarian, gmerriman@lifepacific.edu. Or even library@lifepacific.edu. We both have access to that account and answer that or look at that daily.
Hi, my name is Kat. I had a question. I was looking at different programs, free downloadable ones that will attach to your browsing and record your research history. The program I was looking at was Zotero, and was wondering if you would recommend that program or if you have any knowledge of it, and if that would be a good way to, it's supposed to track your research, kind of keep a log of what keywords you've researched, what subject titles, and things of that nature, and also helps to, depending on if you have Windows, Mac, or what computer program it will actually insert the citations into your actual paper and work alongside with Word.
Yeah, I have done. Oh, haven't published that yet. I've done very little work with citation things and research programs like Zotero, EndNote, Evernote, and some of those others. So my experience is limited with them. And what I will say is they do an okay job of saving your bibliographies, which is great. And in some cases, you can actually save and store your research within their little cloud-based location, and that's fine. And that is great. Something like Zotero is cross-platform, so you can do that sort of thing. Some are additions, as you said, to your browser, either Chrome or to Firefox. I don't know about Internet Explorer or whatever it is now, whether that will work. Yes, if you want to try one, I would recommend either Zotero or EndNote. I think either of them will do what you're looking for as far as saving your research, saving your bibliography, or creating the bibliography. I will say that the citation generation on our websites basically are doing the exact same thing. So you can install this program and do that sort of thing, or you can just take the citations directly from the databases and from the catalog, and that will work just the same. There is something that you have, because you're a student here at Life Pacific, you have Office 365. Right, you're familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay, so you have Windows and things like that already installed. There is the OneNote, and you can use OneNote in a similar idea. You can save your research and some of those things that way within OneNote as well. It doesn't necessarily create the citation for you, but if you cut and paste from your other sites, you can do the same thing within OneNote.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I realize that we have students from all sorts of different parts or different time periods within their program. So those of you who are just beginning, welcome to the program, and some of these things will come in handy as you begin your process, especially things like Clayton Robinson's class, and then as you get further into the program. I understand some of you are also at the capstone project itself, so hopefully you learned some things that might be helpful here in these last few months of your program, and hopefully they come in handy.
How can we, after this is all said and done and everything, how do we access the recording if we want to come back to like a specific part or want to look at that?
Sure, okay. So here I am at the library website, and over here on the front page on the left-hand side, it's the MASL guide to the LPC library. And on this home page, down at the bottom here, it says Research Webinar. So here's the process flow map, which basically kind of outlines what I've talked about today. So reference material using Credo and that sort of thing, digging deeper, the things. So it kind of goes through everything that we've gone through. And then underneath that is the Research Strategies webinar. This recording that's currently posted there, that is from the July webinar. And I'm not sure, I know that my computer wouldn't let me record what was going on, so hopefully Gary got a recording of this one so that we can update that and put that up there. But for now, the July webinar is up, which basically covers probably 90% of the same material. We've added a couple of things to it, but that includes basically the same information. But it will be right here on this MASL website.
When I was poking around the website, one thing that I found really helpful was like how to, when you're doing searching for keywords and everything, like if you're looking for multiculturalism, not, I don't know what another example would be, or I don't know, that tutorial was extremely helpful. I don't know if anybody else has seen that, but I found that really helpful.
Yeah, let me go ahead and point this out. So on our list of LibGuides, under general purpose, I have this online search techniques, and it goes through how to do a search, how to create the keywords, how to find subject headings, how to use those subject headings. So I think that's the one that Catherine Kate was talking about. It actually does go through a lot of the process deeper than what we were talking about here. But it does go through some of that process. And if you wanted just all of our video tutorials, they're right here under the general purpose video tutorials. And this is a growing list of tutorials where we go through things like introduction to WorldCat, navigating, but here's basic search techniques and advanced search techniques, how to search a database. That's not ours, but it does a pretty good job. So several of those can be useful for what you're trying to do here. So we've worked together on creating the part of the Lit Review assignment. And part of the Lit Review assignment that we worked with was gathering resources. And he specifically has it broken up into find so many items in the catalog dealing with your subject, find so many items from a journal database, and I believe he wants Atlas, and I think one other, something from ProQuest about your subject, and then I think 5 items from Google Scholar. So all you have to do is, like I said, you start with your book. Find that one book, find the subject heading, click on that, the subject heading, and that will bring up a ton of books dealing with that specific subject. You pick 5 of those that fit what you're doing and write those down. And then you take that same subject heading and take that into the Atlas, or you take that into one of the ProQuest databases, and you'll find your articles. It's not, I want to say it's not that difficult once you understand the process. Find that subject heading, and from there it's fairly easy. The Google Scholar issue is going to be a matter of Google doesn't search subject headings. Google only searches keywords. So there you're going to want to go back, think back to what are the keywords. Now you can use the same words as the subject heading, and that would work just fine. So I don't want to say that it's not hard, it's just a little bit of time taken to do it. As a reference librarian, I often have students who come to me and they're confused. They want something immediately, and they want it, you know, as quickly and as simply as possible. And with research, it's not a matter of speed. Speed usually means you're going to miss a lot, and you're probably going to be a bit off topic. Just take the extra 5 to 10 minutes to find that one subject heading, add 1-2 keywords, and you've now got a great set of resources. Are there any other questions, or are we going to call this quits in about 2 minutes? As Gary has posted, we are always available to help if you'd like to talk face-to-face. Absolutely. You know, if you're here, you can drop in. If not, Skype works great. We're available. I'm available 8:30 to 12:30 Monday through Friday. Gary's availability is a little bit more than that because he actually works full-time.